All right, Feisties, welcome to a special episode. It's Kelly O'Mara here, and this week, Katie and Joanne are taking off because I have the original Feisty, Sara Gross, with me, because we went to Endurance Exchange in Orlando, and we're bringing you a special episode from Orlando. The place everyone wants to. What is it? The most magical place on earth? Because we were like right by Disney, Sarah.
You wouldn't have known. The only time I got out of the hotel was to run around a 1.5 mile loop around the hotel, grounds.
Perimeter.
Yes. Yeah. So we could have been like on top of Disney and I wouldn't have noticed. But hi, Kelly.
Why did we go to Orlando for Endurance Exchange?
Right. So at Endurance Exchange this year, we had a very nice partnership with USAT, and we presented a pre-conference session about the science and psychology of coaching women. So people were able to sort of sign up for that separately. And I was really happy to have like 40 coaches who were all like super interested in learning more about like how to specifically, like what the specifics are around coaching women.
Yeah, because we talked in the session, we talked a whole bit at first about like why you need coaching specific to women.
Right. And even afterwards, like I talked to Erin, Dr. Erin Ayala, who's our like resident Feisty sports psychologist, about like, because even the title, like, do women have a special psychology for performance? Right. Like why, that's literally how we started kind of the first, I don't know, say 45 minutes or so of the session of like why we need to talk about women specifically, both on the physiological side and the less psychological
side. Right, because
there's
there's like obvious physiological differences. And so, of course, we talked a lot about like the hormonal cycles being the biggest, most obvious difference. But then Erin also talked a lot about it's not just like, oh, women have a different psychology. It's also comes from all these societal structures, right? That they exist within.
It's a lot about like the external forces, like the culture, the expectations, like the ways that we, and for coaches, to help coaches understand that fuller context, and through like a woman's lifespan too, right? Like that might look different if you have young kids than if you're feeling like the pressures that a young woman might feel, or through menopause, and beyond. So,
and I feel like people are taking a lot of notes. It is always funny because, Celine Yeager and Erin Ayala were presenting, and they kept coming with these examples, and I kept being like, is this an example from your life? This feels like an example from your life. It feels very specific.
Yeah, and even when those, they were using examples of from their life or from someone they clearly know very well, you could see so many people in the room like nodding along to so many different, I think in general, I find that like the reason, say 5 years ago, why we didn't talk more about women's specific needs is that it's so diverse that it's like, what are we talking about? Like 5 years ago, I used to go to triathlon conferences, and literally marketing directors or owners of like big companies would come and say to me, like, come to sit beside me at a break and say, hey, Sarah, how do we market to women? Like we cannot answer that question with one thing, right? So we have to talk about like really niche down into all the specific situations that women are in. But it really surprises me, like we put that clip up on social media where Erin talked about a coach understanding the context of potentially an athlete having lost a pregnancy, And I think 5 years ago we would have thought, well, that's super specific, how many, that's niche. Not we, but I mean, just contextually.
But then you're like, it's actually like 30% of women who have gone through pregnancy.
Yeah,
right.
Actually, a huge number of women, lose their pregnancies. This affects a lot of people, and we're not talking about it in the athletic environment. So it's just kind of bringing up all the possible examples like that, I think was kind of one of the big wins.
Yeah, it was great because along with the workshop we did before this conference started on Friday, Erin also did a presentation on Saturday about communication strategies, kind of like specifics on what coaches can utilize with their athletes on like how to talk about difficult topics. And it did have some female specific examples, but it was also just, broadly like how to broach these topics, because there are things you probably shouldn't say.
Right.
I know, like, right? Like, you're missing a lot of workouts. What's going on? That's probably, like, not how to... My favorite is Is it that time of the month?
Is it
That's
that
like
time
not
of
a
the month?
great
Yeah.
way to start that conversation because it doesn't come across well.
Right. And so many coaches, like I think even female coaches struggle with how to, like we're aware now that we should be talking about these things, or at least getting our athletes to track their cycles if they're like regular cycling and they know. But then how do you broach that? So a lot of Erin's advice was around like empathy and curiosity. Like that, I would say that's how I would summarize her framework. Like, start with like an open-ended question. Like, I noticed that last week you didn't, you weren't able to go as hard in some of your, is there anything up?
Right.
Instead of like, is it that time of the month?
Is it that time? Why are you being such a bitch?
Yeah, exactly.
And her whole talk, which a lot of people told us was kind of one of their favorite sessions, or like was very, very helpful because it's really nice to hear from experts in their field as opposed to just, coaches talking to other coaches, which has its own value, but to also hear from experts on like that specific topic. So her whole talk is actually going to be an episode of the Feisty Women's Performance podcast next week. So if you are like, wait, I wish I had heard it, you'll be able to hear her whole talk with all of its specifics on that podcast. Because Erin is the host of our brand new Feisty Women's Performance podcast. Lots of very specific female-focused, science-backed answers, and that are not just for athletes. Like, I was just not just listening to the first episode, because obviously I listened to it before it went out, but I was just like going through all the stuff, and obviously we talk a lot about athletes because we're like triathletes, but so much of this is also relevant to like people who just want to like run twice a week and go to the gym.
Yeah.
Or like just they just want to be like healthy. And that's a thing that exists in the male universe. Like longevity. What's the other word they always use besides longevity?
Optimization.
Optimization. Yeah. And they have all these like very specific routines. But then for women, we're like, oh, performance, but I'm not an athlete.
Right.
And it's like, no, that's.
Yeah. Like we want to just perform in our life overall. Right. And a lot of the advice coming through that podcast will help us do that.
So you should also send your questions, though, because Erin's going to join us on this Feisty Tri podcast to answer. She is a sports psychologist by trade, long time, worked with female athletes on sports psychology issues. So send your questions in, because she's going to be here next week with me and Katie and Joanne. And I know Katie has just like a list of questions.
Oh, I'm sure. I can't wait to hear Katie asking Erin some questions. That's going to be great.
One of the other reasons, of course, that we went to the most magical place on earth is because we wanted to catch up with all, like you and I, even though we talk every day, we don't see each other that often. So it's also like catching up with people in the triathlon universe.
I intentionally was like, I'm sharing a room with Kelly. So we got to have sleepover time.
Sleepover time. Perfect. And I feel like I did a lot of catching up with our next little clip here with Taylor Knibb this weekend. Just, in passing, Taylor always has lots of insight when she's not at a race, right? She has a lot of thoughts because she's not like stressed out. And so we caught up with her by the side of the pool next to the water slide. We had Linda, our head of education, and Linda will tell you why they are friends in this little clip.
My name's Linda Rowan. I am from Feisty, and I am going to join today with Taylor Knibb. Is that your name?
Yes. Nice to meet you.
Is it the first time we've met?
No, we met 5 years ago at St. George 7.3 Worlds. Do you remember? I was a pro who was very unprepared. I decided to do the race like 2 weeks out, and you gave me a place to stay. And then I raided your fridge, pretty much. You're wondering why on earth there's a cake in the fridge. You opened up the fridge, there's a cake, and you said, whose birthday is it? And I'm like, no, it's just race week, I have a cake.
She's got the best memory. I do remember the St. George. I do remember thinking she's very unplanned for a pro. And I do recall nothing's changed. I'm going to come back to that question. I do recall having a whole lot of food in the fridge and her saying, whose is this? As she's putting it in her mouth.
Well, thank you for letting me stay with you and letting me do that race.
It's a pleasure. And now we're still friends.
I hope so.
Are we friends?
Yes.
One of the things that we are now at Endurance Exchange, and as a friend, I want to ask you, what do you do to keep yourself educated?
What do I do to keep myself educated? Well, I come to Endurance Exchange.
It doesn't have to be about triathlon. What do you do in life to keep yourself thinking, educated?
I read
What?
books.
What? No, what? Actually, this is one of the questions. When I watch you get interviewed by commentators, they creep and you see them. What is that question that Taylor is asking that commentator? You turn questions around really quickly on commentators, don't you?
It depends on the commentator.
Do you like challenging the commentator?
I like challenging everyone.
Yeah, that's probably more the point. Okay, let's go back. What book are you now reading?
So I'm reading The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt, and then The Academy by Ellen Hildebrand, because I have one fiction book and one nonfiction book at all times. And so, because I like to like have different books for different purposes, and one's to relax me and one's to learn. So,
When do you read fiction and when do you read nonfiction?
yeah, more in the morning, or like, so when I'm at my kitchen counter or like sitting up, I'll read nonfiction and take notes, and then I read fiction when I'm more like relaxing and want to chill. So, it's more my mood and what I need.
Okay, I want to go back to that. Chill. What does chill mean for Taylor Knibb?
Well, it's just me.
Just you sitting down, relaxing. You can sit down, relax, the mind goes, and you just be? Is that easy for you?
I guess that my level of chill would not classify as chill for anyone else in the world. Yes and no, I'm working on it. I can relax sometimes.
So you're working on chilling. What else are you working on? What's 2026 looking like for Taylor Knibb? It can be anything. You can tell us everything you want to tell us about your race plan, or you can tell us what you're doing next week, whatever you want to share.
Oh, well, next week I'm going to Portland, Oregon for the Hoka Global Athlete Summit. So, yeah, it's kind of, I looked and there aren't any direct, well, there was one, but not on United to Portland, so.
Do you need a friend to go with you?
Do you want to come?
Okay, 2026. Can you share anything about racing, triathlon, if you want to?
I hope I'll be doing every single distance except for 100K. But even that, I hope there are a few that I'd want to do if it fits in the schedule, but otherwise, yep, I hope I do every single distance.
And is there a race that you go, that's my race?
What do you mean?
Is there a race that's sitting as your priority?
Every one of them?
High achiever, aren't you? You're a high achiever. That's all I say to that. I have a question. I read an article the other day that the record for Ironman is being decreased, the time in women, by 89 seconds per year. So the race record. Do you think you will be the first woman to break 8 hours for Ironman?
No, because I don't think I think that it's very course dependent, and I don't think that I will be doing the courses that would be helpful for that.
Might not be this year, but what about next year or the year after? Or you like those really challenging courses, don't you?
Oh no, but hopefully next year, 2027 and 2028 are focused on something else, and then maybe in 2029, but we'll see.
Something else. Can I ask more about something else?
Well, there's just something big in 2028, right?
Is that in LA?
It's in California, yeah.
Okay, great.
But we'll see.
And Taylor, what do you hope to gain out of being at Endurance Exchange?
I'm here to spend time with my coach, and I've already gotten to do that, so it's kind of a win. And then I get to see people like you. So, I mean, that's what I hope to gain. Have a fun weekend.
Oh, thanks, Taylor.
Hate indoor training? We have great news. We have partnered with Wahoo to offer you a special deal on the Wahoo Kicker Run, a treadmill that will convert even the most diehard treadmill haters. Wahoo, the same company that revolutionized indoor cycling training, has literally broken the treadmill mold with this machine. With its special run-free mode, you can just hop on it and run. It naturally adjusts the pace as you do, just like you would outdoors. Speed up, slow down, it moves with you as you do. It can also simulate the terrain by subtly tilting the angle from side to side, so again you feel like you're really running, not locked into an unnatural pace or place. Or you can lock it in or even program workouts, so it does put you through your training paces, including both inclines and declines. And it's stunningly quiet, even when you're humming along full tilt. Even if you love training outdoors, the Kicker Run is a game changer for year-round training. No more trying to navigate ice-covered roads, awful weather, or worrying about going out in the dark. We love it, and we think you will too, so check it out. Click the link in the show notes and use the code FEISTY, all caps, one word, FEISTY, to get a free Headwind Smart Fan valued at $300 with the purchase of a Wahoo Kicker Run. That's code FEISTY to get a free fan when you purchase a Wahoo Kicker Run. We will drop a link in the show notes to make it a snap. And right now, Wahoo is running a massive sale of 25% off the Wahoo Kicker Run. So click that link and get yours today.
Okay, so Kelly, that was Taylor. That was Taylor at her best, perhaps. Is it? The thing I really related to there was that when she was talking about how she reads.
Oh, really?
How she does her nonfiction. She does her nonfiction reading, like sitting at a table and taking notes. Like she's 28, right? When I was her age, that's exactly what I did. Like my ongoing learning process about sport and sports psychology and stuff like that would be always like, I'd always have a book where I was like, had the book open, I would take notes. And then I always had, a novel beside my bed.
That's weird. This is deeply not something I ever do.
I've actually talked to other people about this who do it, and I kind of wish I had sort of time for that routine still, because I feel like I don't. You don't learn as much, right?
I read widely and broadly and a lot and quickly, and I always just feel like when things keep popping up and they stick in my head, then I'm like, that's the important. Like I will remember. That's sort of my logic.
Right.
See? Uh-huh.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was funny. I know. So Linda, who is our head of education, and Taylor have been friends for a while, and I knew that, but I didn't know how they had met. And now I do remember St. George 70.3 that she talked about where they met, because I was there for triathlete, and Taylor got third. And it was the year that the pouring rain, if people remember this, and the barricades blowing into the bike course, and it was crazy. And I do remember this, like, there's this pro who wants a room. And it was like, does anyone have an extra room? You're like, well.
That's awesome. And it ended up being Linda who
there you go.
Who gave her the room. Yeah.
I feel like maybe she has gotten more organized since then.
Yes, more. You couldn't put that notification now. Taylor Knibb is looking for a room. It would be, you'd get a different response rate. Is basically what I mean.
You would. Yes. I had a lot of just kind of in passing in the hall. You know, the conversations you have like in the halls at these things. Some with Taylor, some with other people, where I feel like I learned a lot of stuff. What's the word that isn't for public consumption? Like from different people, and I was like, all right, we're just gonna file that away in Kelly's brain.
I was thinking that too. Yes, I think we were part of a couple of the same conversations. But one of the really fun things that happened was who had the Watt bike?
Oh yeah, so Training Peaks had a Watt bike out at their booth in the expo. Our stuff did not make it across the Canadian border because, as we're going to talk about, uncertainty is a big challenge in the triathlon space right now.
So yeah, we weren't able to have our booth space, but we were able to take over the Maximum Power Challenge because we brought our ringer, Erin Ayala.
Yes.
And I guess so Training Peaks didn't have, Kelly, you did it too, right?
Yeah, so they had this Watt bike, and there was like a leaderboard for just like peak wattage, right? So it's not even like you didn't have to hold it; it was just hit a peak on Zwift, which I've never done the Watt bike. It's weird, right? Because it like changes as you go. Like I don't know if you've ever done sprints on your own bike; it's not the same. And Linda went over and explained to them, like, look, you have an overall leaderboard that's all men. And we're sitting here having all these conversations about how to bring women into the sport, bring newbies into the sport. And some new person walks up and is like, I can't do this, right? And they feel like, yeah, that's fine. It's not a big deal. Like, it's not, oh my God, we're telling them they can't participate. But they feel excluded or they feel like weird about it, or they're, you should have a women's board too. And she told him, if you do, we'll come back. So kudos to them. They got their person out to make up a whole little women's leaderboard. And then we went back, and I had to put a number up so that there was some women's numbers on there.
So you put a solid number up, I remember.
In my skinny jeans and Nikes. And then Erin was like, she warmed up. She like...
And honestly, like Erin's a cyclist, right?
Yeah.
So she has the training, and she also like has the quads for this situation, you know? So I think she would have been, by the end, I didn't see it. I didn't see the final board, but kind of like at the end of the first day, she was just kind of in the middle of the men's board too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she really put up a decent number.
So there was a lot of fun, you know, a lot happening. Fun was had at the conference. And then there is kind of a number of things people come for, right? They come for the connections, the networking, but then there's also a whole bunch of CEUs and coaching education you can get there, which obviously was part, like our workshop was one of those things. And then there's kind of this like data and state of the sport and like where are we at, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the coaching element, so like Taylor was there because her coach was doing a whole talk, and her and him also weren't like talked about their relationship, which she like might share too much information with him, was kind of the shockingly the joke. But then he did a whole talk and about just like coach, you know, his journey and like the coach relationship and working with all the other people in an athlete's life. And I just thought the one thing I thought was funny that has nothing to do with anything, and then we can talk about other things we learned, was that after Kona, because he is Taylor's coach and Lucy Charles Barkley's coach, Dan Lorang. So obviously they both had bad collapses. And I guess all these people came up to him after and were like, you know, you should really do some heat prep.
That honestly, okay, that makes me feel so much better about, because sometimes, you know, sometimes when people come up to you and say something that ridiculous, like as if you didn't think of it, like that happens to me quite a lot. Like I'm trying to think of a situation like that right now. Something will come to me, but like it happens to me a lot. And sometimes I'm not sure where the intersection is between like me being female or you know, I'm not that tall, or like some of these factors that like, or sometimes I'm perceived as young. I mean, not so much anymore, but traditionally. And so, and you and I have talked about this stuff before, but you know, and people give you the most obvious
and apparently it's not just you, because they're doing it to Dan Lorang.
They're doing it to Dan Lorang. I'm like, about the very thing that he is literally the best in the world at. Like, you know, I'm like, okay, it's not just, remember when there was an online troll, I'm going to call this person a troll, but someone online was giving Daniela Reef advice about her saddle height when she was posted a video, and she just kind of said, well, that the saddle height worked for the world record, so I'm just going to keep it if that's okay with you, you know. So it's not just Daniela, it's also the coaches get it too. So
so it might be triathlon.
There's a triathlon. There's an intersection of factors.
An intersection of factors.
Triathlon's probably one of them.
But yeah, apparently Lucy also was hyponatremia, not heat stroke, but anyway, separate point. So there were a lot of different kind of like coaching talks, science stuff, protein, which I did not go to because I don't care about protein. What things did you feel like you learned anything? You picked any up new tidbits here and there from our talk or from any of the other ones you said in? You're thinking about it? Because, I mean, we'll hear from Vic Brumfeld in a little bit, and she, like, this is not, what's the word? This is not deep insight, but she picked up that she should leave comments more often and communicate with her coach.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. She picked that up from our session, right?
Yeah.
From Erin. Yeah. I definitely picked something up, but I'm blanking right now. Sorry.
You're blanking. So you're like, well. Well, we did talk, in that vein of coaching, we did talk to one of the other big sessions that people really loved and, you know, was well received, was Shelley Lake spoke, who is the coach of Natalie Grabo, the 80-year-old who is the first ever 80-year-old to finish Kona, who we talked to back in Kona. And so she did a big talk on like what it took, kind of the coaching to get Natalie to that start line and finish line. And then we chatted with her kind of briefly after that. All right, Shelley Lake, the coach of the famous Natalie Grabo. I always say that wrong, Grabo or Grabo?
I think it's Grabo.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, since she like blew up, first woman ever at 80 to finish Kona, what has it been like for her, but for you? Are you getting all kinds of 80-year-olds asking to be coached now?
So So actually, no. Surprising. And I did get 2 inquiries yesterday. But for her, it's been crazy. I did text her this morning. I said, how many appearances have you done? And I think it's been probably at least 50 or 60 because I keep learning of them. But she said one of her things on a rainy day is she's going to write down all the places she's been. But I mean, I could list them if you want, but it's a lot. There's a lot for sure. But when your 10-year-old goes to school and his teacher says, "Is your mom Michelle Lake?" because I read about her on NPR, like, you've made it, Yeah.
Did you expect it to be that big, like inspire that many people?
I thought it would be, actually. I think her falling was definitely great for, like...
Oh, right, the finish when she fell? Yeah.
She fell, which a funny story is that my husband and I were at the top of the hill there, like at the top of Peilani, end of the Queen K when you make the right turn. And I said to her, just whatever you do, don't fall down. Because it was raining, and I was worried she was going to fall right at the finish. And then she fell at the finish, like literally. But... I forget now what your question was.
Oh, yeah, it inspired so many people. And you're right. I think the falling right on the finish line and then getting up just made that video.
Yes, that's what made it viral. And the funny thing is we woke up in Kona the next morning, and my husband was on the front page of Reddit because he was her catcher. He's the one that's in all the videos that shows up right after Cherie. And he's like, all my friends are asking why I'm here. But we knew it was a big deal. We had always planned on going. And so it was pretty crazy when it happened, and being able to be there was fantastic. So it was really important to us to be there. But I thought it would happen, but, you never know. Never know. You never know. Never know.
And tell us, so how long have you been coaching her, and what have you kind of learned? I mean, we talked to her in Kona about some of her training, but I feel like you probably put a lot more thought and science into this.
You'd hope, right? We started together on January 1st of 2024, and I looked back at my intake paperwork, and she said her goal was to qualify for Kona at Maryland and go for being the oldest. So we knew it, but I don't think we spoke about it. It's a big thing that I didn't want to create more stress, like do no harm. So it was kind of a secret. Like, I would tell friends about it. Oh, yeah, I'm doing this, but it wasn't something we were going to, like, put out there. So... and you just don't know if it's going to happen. So we were trying to take it day by day, but, pretty crazy that it happened. I think you were asking, like, what's special or what's different or the science to it. Yeah. It's really being interactive with your athletes and getting to speak to them a lot, because I think this is as high performance as, like, a pro. Like, we need, like, everything to go perfectly, including the weather, which we were lucky it wasn't super bad. I think it was like kind of an average year. If I don't know, you guys may know better. I feel like it was average. But we knew that there was going to be a lot of things out of our control, so we were going to be on top of things as much as we could be, which would be like every day, how are you feeling? How did this go? How did that go? Can we push it a little harder, or do we need to back off? And that was probably the most important thing in the science, was the interaction in the coaching versus what the actual plan was, if that makes sense.
And like in all of your, because you don't just coach 80-year-olds, you coach a number of athletes. So when it comes to like the older athletes, I know, like we talked to Natalie, like the durability, the, being able to like put in the mile, like you have a lot of years on your legs and your knees and so how do you kind of adjust the training plan to, for those athletes?
Less running straight. Okay. We do a lot of run walking. We got her into strength training, something she had never done before. So that was really important. Doing a lot of the fitness in the bike and the swim where it's safer. And I probably didn't do a good enough job at making sure she was running slow enough. Probably is a big thing. And I think the athletic age, so she didn't start triathlon until she was 59. She learned to swim at 59. So I think she told you guys that. Yeah. So she wasn't exhausted, like Natasha Badman. I wish I had the numbers, but she didn't start triathloning until she was in her 20s. Yeah. So she was racing really well older because she had less, age. So that's certainly a big help with her. In her situation was she wasn't exhausted by the time she was 80. How many people tell us, like, oh, I'm going to go to Kona when I'm 85, once I'm the only one in my age group. Like, I hear that all the time. But it's like, you've been racing your whole life. Like, she luckily set herself up. And I think a lot of the good athletes in her age group, which they are a crew. They watch each other. They're very competitive. They know each other. They sometimes, the athlete I used to work with that referred her to me, that was the same age, they would deconflict races. Like, you're going to go to Kona this year, I'm going to go to 70.3 Worlds, things nice. Like that. Interesting. But they know each other, but they also, I think a lot of them started later. I don't think they were, what an interesting thing, if you do get to talk to Natalie again, which I only learned in all these interviews, is that she didn't have Title IX. And I think that's something that I hadn't even realized. She was not an athlete much before. She started running and playing tennis and things, but because she didn't have Title IX, and we are so lucky to have that, like fabulously lucky. And that maybe is why some of these older ladies started later.
That sends me up for my next question was going to come, which we have a wave of women coming up now in the age groups who were post Title IX. You know, we have this whole, and so they are going to be racing into their 70s, 80s. What advice do you have for them?
A lot of things. Probably mindset, gratitude. Every day we have to be grateful that we can keep going. I mean, a lot of us have older parents and, you know, we're in that age group where we're watching our parents age or, you know, aunts and uncles. And I've had a lot of people come up to me after my talk yesterday about like, gosh, this was so important to me because, you know, I'm talking to my parents about their health and how much gratitude that she is able to keep doing these things. And I will say that the most beautiful thing is she never complains about training ever. And she goes, oh, I'm so happy. I have a 3-hour bike ride on the trainer today. I don't even know. I think she listens to music and she just sits and she doesn't have a kicker. She has the old school trainer and she just watches her watts and hits the lap button, you know.
I don't think I've ever said, thank God I have a 3-hour bike ride on the train. No.
Yeah, she loves it. And she's like, this is the best part of my day. Like, it is amazing. And I'm so, like, there was a couple days, like, she just drove on Monday to the Sherry show. They brought a limo. She lives in North Jersey, so a limo came to our house. And she's, you know, sent me all these pictures of her in the green room and getting her makeup done. And she said, I didn't get to work out today, so, I mean, it was an okay day. Like, I really prefer the days that I get to move and I get to do things. So, yeah, I mean, it's gratitude, really, like gratitude. And I think I have worked with other athletes sometimes that aren't grateful for what we get to do and getting to keep moving. That's probably the most important part. You know, the training and stuff is all kind of whatever, you know, it's the gratitude.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us and for, you know, coaching such an amazing woman. So
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, one thing that I think has been really cool since like coming out of Kona and then watching, because you and I knew like quickly when our reel about Natalie started to go viral, and we had interviewed her beforehand, and we were one of the very few, you know, media outlets that had interviewed her. So we were getting good reach on our stuff, and we knew like, oh, this is going to go bananas. You know? Yeah. So I've seen since some clips of her on Instagram and fairly big, you know, nationwide news outlets. And I was a little concerned, I think, and I think we even talked about this like immediately after the race, how nervous and non-media trained Natalie was before the race to this complete transition to like the clips I was seeing on Instagram where she's just like confidently owning her shit and you know, and on all these big podcasts. And I really thought like, good for you. Like, she not only had this big, you know, confidence boosting win and being the first 80-year-old to finish, or 80-year-old woman to finish, but also like she seems to have quite a few, like she seems to have come a long way with her media presence, I guess. So
I mean, I think she was, and Shelley mentioned this kind of to us, I think she was nervous beforehand, obviously. Which makes a lot of sense, right? When you think about it. And then, I mean, afterwards, she joked, like, I saw her afterwards, like, in Kona, and she was like, oh, I just went viral because I fell. And you're like, well, sure, but I think also, like...
yeah. I think
also it was going viral. Yeah. It is interesting, and you and I have talked about this, and we had posted something on social about it, this whole idea that, like, she was pre-Title IX, right? There's a reason that she like picked up, well, first tennis and then picked up some running in her 40s, like with her kids, and then was like, oh, I want to learn how to swim in my 50s, right? Because she didn't have that opportunity before, and she's talked about that. Sharia Grunfeld's talked about, like, these women have all talked about this. This isn't like, when we posted this on social, somebody was like, oh, women never stop complaining. And I was like, but, like, this is a fact. Like, we are stating a fact. Like, they did not have that opportunity because it was not the law.
And I thought it was super interesting that her athletic trajectory went tennis, running, because when you think of how those sports were growing back, like, in the mid 20th century, like, tennis was first with its movement around having women's leagues, pro leagues. Like, there was a see it, be it kind of factor to tennis being very front and center in women's sports, right? 50 years ago. And then you have like then the running boom and, you know, Catherine
Switzer.
Switzer, thank you.
Okay.
At the Boston Marathon, and then you have that whole thing, and then all of like the women that flooded into running after that. So I feel like Natalie's trajectory was, of course, like it's probably the same as so many other women where they maybe didn't even consider doing sports previously, or maybe kind of wanted to but weren't sure if they could, to like actually loving it. And her absolute love for exercise is so clear at every time I've seen her on something. Every time when she was with us too, it was like she's just, I love it. I just love swimming and biking and running, you know?
I was thinking though about like what Shelley was saying about how gratitude is the most important, and how Natalie just like loves getting these workouts in. Like she doesn't complain. She's just so happy to be able to do it. Mm-hmm. Now, if you weren't able to do something for 40 years and then you were able to, you would be like, of course you'd be like, wow, I get to do this. And then this also goes to what you and I were kind of talking about at the beginning about how like women are not one market, and you can't market to them as one thing. Because I will tell you, there isn't a gratitude from 30-year-olds that like, oh wow, thanks for letting me do this, right? Like, and it is reflected. Like there is a reason 20-something women are like, what do you mean there aren't equal spots, right? Like I get it. Like we're not going to go into that right now, but I'm just saying there's a very different attitude. That's not like, wow, I get to do this. Like, sure, in the scheme of like, it's better than all, like lots of things out there, but like, they are not like, you don't have that built in, like, we were banned from doing this, now I get to. Mm-hmm. You have like, of course I get to. Mm-hmm. I'm just as good as you. Like, it's a different perspective, and you have to like also remember, like, because we're going to talk in a second about the changing demographics in the state of the sport and triathlon. Mm-hmm. And I will say, I think there is this wave of 20 and 30 somethings coming who have a very different
set of expectations. And I think those things don't, like, I think the gratitude and the expectations don't have to necessarily be, it's not one or the other, right? So you can be like grateful that you're well enough to go out and do
that you're
something.
Healthy.
Yeah. Like those types of things, you can be grateful to live in a country where that's possible, etc.
And that you like have the money and you have the time and like all of those things.
And you can be like, I'm expecting to be treated just like everybody else and not to be treated less because of my gender or any other reason. And those two things can live alongside each other for sure.
So, because we're about to talk about the other stuff, but that was one of the things I did think a lot about. Because there is this wave, like we are very aware at Feisty, and it is our core audience. There's a wave of 40 plus women. So I mean, 40, like older than 40. Like they are the first generation to have like always had Title IX, and they are hitting menopause, and they are like demanding answers, right? So, and that's why we have these huge efforts now to finally give them answers. And so much of the questions that we get are aimed at that demographic. But there is also another wave behind them that have different questions. And that's why now you're getting like the pregnancy questions and like, right? Like there's another wave of like, wait, what the fuck coming from them. And we see that like reflected in, I think, some of our stuff.
Yes. And we will help bring the science to life in our newly iterated women's performance podcast. Yes.
So, it's like these questions came up in our workshop, and came up when they presented kind of the state of the sport stuff on the last day, which that's like the other big reason I think a lot of people go to Endurance Exchange, because they want to see the data, hear the data, like, are there more races? Are there less races? What's happening? What are the demographics? What are the costs? Because everyone knows like their region. Like I can tell you how many new races there are in Northern California, like off the top of my head. But you don't know like national trends. You don't know if it's just you. And like a lot of the race directors I talk to, there's a lot of like uncertainty, but there's a lot of like questions, right? Where they're like, I don't know what's happening. So they present this data on the last day, and we'll talk about it in a second. But first, we talked to the USAT CEO, Vic Broomfield, kind of about what she was seeing coming out of 2025 and going into 2026, and like what they're focusing on. All right, Vic, I haven't seen you since Kona, so I feel like first we have to ask, how did the off season, how did the recovery go?
Oh, it's been amazing. I've done hardly anything.
That's what we like to hear from triathletes. Nothing.
Yeah, I'm taking the off season to a new level. Having said that, I'm still training 12 to 14 hours a week.
All right, but I was going to ask you, not from your personal perspective, but like from a USAT perspective, what went well last year? What were the highlights? What were the learnings?
The learnings. I think the thing we were most excited about is we all know that events have declined in the United States, especially since 2012. That's where the biggest decline has been. And we've actually seen a stabilization and slight growth. Not significant growth, but enough that it's promising that there's momentum in the event community around getting more races started.
And you said it was since 2012, so it's not just a pandemic thing.
Oh, no, not at all. There's been massive decline in endurance sports in general. I think obviously running seeing a really big boom, but when you look at cycling as well, there was a really big decline starting in 2012 in endurance sports, but it especially hit triathlon hard. And so you saw that in event declines, participation, membership, all of those things. They really started to stabilize around 2018, 2019, but then COVID really just pulled the rug out from under us. So while we did see events coming back after the pandemic, we hadn't seen growth. And so what we're starting to see now is not just stabilization, but growth. And I think that's the most promising metric that we're looking at right now.
All right, I'm sure you guys had lots of meetings about this, but why was there a decline? What is your theory?
Oh, my theory of why there was a decline over the last couple decades. It's complex, and I don't actually know for sure. I mean, I think we have anecdotal examples and we have theories and hypotheses on why we think that happened. I think it's a combination of, if you look back at that time, that's when there was this mass influx of new opportunities for Tough Mudder and Spartan and color racing. And so you had all of these new competitions for that same customer. And then at the same time, when you see massive growth in any industry, it becomes more compelling. And so then you have acquisition and consolidation. And that was happening all around the board. And then as you look at acquisition, consolidation, and mergers, you're always looking to consolidate, find efficiencies. And then what happens is you decline the portfolio. And then that just becomes a cycle where you have this cycle of decline. And the biggest challenge in our sport is that getting permits is actually really tough. And once you give up a permit or lose a permit, to get that back is really hard. And so you have these events that took years and years of sweat equity to build. And then once they go away, it's really hard to reinvigorate those. We are seeing some of those races coming back. I mean, we've talked about it even with Wildflower, right? That came back last year. So you are seeing investment in people's time and energy and communities trying to bring races back and start new races. And I think that's going to help reverse that trend that we have experienced over the last couple decades.
So we're starting to see some stabilization, some growth. That's good. But obviously there were some, not as good things in 2025. I think we all felt that. What were the, as we said, opportunities to improve in triathlon in 2025?
Well, I think this actually is connected to events. So we have seen membership grow. So that's really promising, right? Because that's an indicator to us that more people are participating in the sport. But we haven't seen participation growing. And so that's something that we're trying to understand. Why is that? We're still investing in technology to better understand people's behaviors. But right now, we're assuming that's also correlated to access to racing because people need to be able to have access to short course local racing in order to participate more often, since that's where the bulk of participation is.
Wait, what was the saying last year? Like there are less triathletes when there are less triathlons?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, when you think about it, you would do your first 5K if your neighbor invited you to a local race. You probably wouldn't fly across the country for a 5K, and you probably wouldn't fly across the country for a marathon as your first race. So we know that local grassroots racing invites people in. So just by nature of those races going away or not being there, we're losing potential community.
So is that the focus for 2026? I know, like, whenever I ask you what are your priorities, you're like, well, I have 10 top 5 priorities. So what is the priority for 2026?
That's so cute. I usually say I have 42 priorities. But no, if we really narrowed it down, our number one priority is getting more people participating in the sport. And when you start to unpack that, that obviously plays into, if you need more people participating, you need more people signing up to be members, you need more access to races, you need those races operating in healthy, scalable ways. And so I think getting more people participating in racing is really what ricochets out into all of these other priorities for us, since we do have 42 priorities.
42 priorities. All right, what are you looking forward to this year? Personally and professionally, Vic.
Well, the thing I love about my job is personal is professional. So
you're like personally going to drive up the participation rate by...
I am personally registered. Well, that's actually one of my greatest weaknesses is I register for everything. So I have a hard time setting boundaries. Personally, I'm really excited to compete in our off-road nationals this year. I think that's going to be really fun in Austin, Texas. Multi-sport nationals, I'm excited because one of the races starts with a slip and slide. So I'm actually going to train here at the resort at Endurance Exchange. There is a water slide that I'm going to try and do some reps on.
Taylor Knibb was telling me she wants to go down it. We should all go down the water slide.
Whatever I do on that slide, Taylor will do better. I'm confident about that. But yeah, I'm excited for multi-sport nationals. I'm going to do a full distance race in Europe this year, which I'm really looking forward to. And then I just found out on the plane right over here, I got into the Leadville 100 mountain bike race. So those are some personal things I'm looking forward to.
Awesome. What else should we look forward to this weekend? What have you learned so far?
Well, I went to the Feisty experience, so I learned a lot. I think actually what I learned most from that experience is that I need to be a better coached athlete, that I need to communicate better with my coach. But what's really cool about this actually is that, like we talk about when we talk to race directors or coaches, who here is trying to foster community, and everybody will raise their hand, right? Like that's part of their core business is fostering community. But like just like a coach needs a coach, people fostering community need community. And so when we look at the business side of the sport, this is our community. And I think what I'm going to learn most is just from hearing from our race directors, coaches, and club leaders about what do they need and how can we make sure that all of these things that we're doing as an organization truly is translating to them improving the way that they work and how they're affecting growth in the sport.
And just last question, what are you hearing the most from them? I mean, I'm sure you hear a lot of opportunities for learning. And so what are the most common ones?
I think it's different for coaches and race directors, right? The race directors are the nucleus of the sport. So when we go back to how do you get more people participating in the sport, you need places for them to go and they need to be able to participate more frequently. So what race directors need is support and help from us of how do we connect the community around them to their races to get more people into the sport, right? They have access to the athletes in their database. What can we do to connect the greater community to more races and then encourage racing between all the different grassroots races that are accessible to them? I think that will be really important for race directors. And for coaches, it's about how do we also connect them to the community, but then across both, how do we give them tools and resources to be better coaches and race directors? How do we make sure that we have safer races, better experiences, and coaches coaching athletes in a way that helps them have a great experience and stay in the sport long term?
And you have to communicate with your coach, right? That's what you learned.
Yeah, and I personally need to actually put comments into the comments section of Training Peaks. Okay. It's not just about making it green. It's about making it green with a little bubble that says that I commented.
Well, thanks so much for chatting with us. And good luck at Leadville.
Thanks. I'm going to need it.
So obviously I said this in there, but the quote I always think of, Sarah, is you can't have triathletes without triathlons.
Right.
And I will tell you, so I was editor of Triathlete magazine, through the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. And this was hugely one of our issues because you can be a runner without having a race, right? And you can be a cyclist without having a race. And you cannot be a triathlete without having otherwise you're just a person who exercises.
I remember having this conversation during COVID because it's what makes a triathlete, right? And if you don't do a race, if you swim, bike, and run, are you still a triathlete? If you swim, bike, and run without an intention to race, you probably are to some extent, but it is very much point taken though that it is much more defined by the events than running or cycling.
And obviously it's also mentality because I did do a race for a year, 2 years or something. I was oh yeah, I'm a triathlete. Yeah. So of course.
Yeah, it's the intention to eventually race again. Or if you've been a long time triathlete and you just continue your exercise patterns, then sure, you're a triathlete. Not to insult anyone who doesn't intend to race, but is still a triathlete. That's absolutely.
But it's this weirdly existential question. And
yes.
Right, because to Vic's point, that is why there have been overwhelmingly focused on getting events back and getting race directors back, particularly local events, right? Yes, Ironman is rebounding some to a degree, accounts for a slightly larger portion of races than they used to, but you're not this is changing a little bit because people want to do bucket list things, but mostly you're not going to fly to do your first ever race, you're going to do the one in your town or the one that's like an hour drive away that your friends are doing, right? Like that's how it works.
Yeah, that was, I think, one of the best points she made there, that, you know, the access point, if we're talking about getting more people into triathlon, the access point is your local event. Although if I was the czar of triathlon, which I know is one of your questions that you sometimes ask, because I was thinking this as she was talking and as we were prepping for this too, that like what might work kind of in just looking at like the High Rocks model, for example, because people fly to places to do High Rocks, which takes about the same amount of time as a sprint triathlon, right? So how would that be capitalized on? And the answer, which is probably impossible for USAT to do, but it would have to be a private company. But the answer would be that you put together like a series of sprint distance events that are branded, that have a very defined experience around them that people can associate with, like, this is what this triathlon is. This is what I'm getting out of it. This is where I rank nationally or internationally with all of these races. You know, most of the courses would probably have to be flat, and you'd have to be able to kind of compare times. But I think there is, like, if you had endless money, and there is kind of an opportunity to do that for someone who feels like pouring money in.
To a degree, I think that is what Supertry is trying to do now. Like, there's a reason there, but obviously there are a lot of factors, and they kind of have to like deal with what they're doing with their pros, which was one of the hallway conversations I had this weekend. But that is like, there's a reason they've invested in like sprint racing, right? Because it is where the majority, like, even though we triathlon goers, triathletes get so focused on the long course, like the majority, it's something like 75-80% are still Olympic distance and shorter, super sprint growth, especially when you talk about women like account for close to 50% of sprint racers. It's like 46 or 47. And that's what that corresponds with what like I saw at races this year and last year. The biggest, so they're doing this whole talk about the state of sport, and they talk for like, and all anybody wants to know is like, is it growing or not? Right? Like literally one of the guys next to me like wrote down, but is it growing? Like, so they say all this notepad stuff. Yeah. Because he wanted to like.
There's a lot of hiding in the numbers. Like, just tell us if it's growing.
So in short, in sum, what Vic was saying is that the events have leveled off. There's it's like, 3 more events in the country than last year. Like, it's not huge.
The number of events has leveled
off. The number of events.
Okay.
And the reason this matters is if you look at the chart, massive drop in 2020, slight rebound in 2021, and then there was this big jump in 2022. And that is similar for participation. And I would argue that probably people had deferrals. There were like a whole bunch of, like pent up demand. There were race directors who wanted to come back and do their race like one last time. So you had this kind of like overcorrection in 22, and then it like dropped the next couple of years, not all the way back down, right? But it dropped, like you can see. So it's like this massive drop 2020 to like zero almost. And then it like goes way back up in 2022, and then it dropped again. And so their point is like, it has stopped dropping now, and it's like leveled off. And this is true of USAT membership too, right? It is pre-COVID, it was like 330,000. Now we're like 308,000. So it's not all the way back up to pre-COVID numbers in terms of membership, but like it's close. The number of actual race starts, like participants, is also it's also leveling off, if that makes sense. But it is not back up to pre-COVID numbers at all. And it is down a little bit from last year. So if you were going to say like, where are we at overall? Like, we are still down from pre-COVID. We have leveled off the drop, but we are not, like, it is basically where it was in 2024. Now that I can like say a lot of numbers, but the problem is on podcast numbers are hard to follow. You're not supposed to say lots of numbers because people.
According to the rules of podcasting? Okay.
According to the rules of podcasting, yeah.
So give us something you can digest.
So the biggest thing, though, the thing that like the charts and like what they like, and I honestly was skeptical at first, but then they like really, really showed their work. The 20 to 29 age group has skyrocketed in the last 3 years. It grew 20% from last year. It is now the second biggest age group in triathlon after the 30 to 39.
And did they have
So it's
gender
not
breakdown of that?
Yeah.
Was it men and
They
women?
did. They went like super in the weeds, and it's still mostly men. Like it's still
Oh, it
very
is.
similar to the but it's we'll get in a second.
Okay.
The biggest difference is that the 20 to 29 are 1-day licenses. They are doing an event, maybe 2, and that's it. They are not sticking around. At the same time that you saw this like massive growth in the 20 to 29, they are finding triathlon. They do a triathlon. Whether or not they stick around is kind of going to be like triathlon's existential question.
Yeah.
At the same time, the 40 to 49-year-olds who have, and like 50 to 50, who have historically been the core of triathlon have steadily declined since coming back from the pandemic. And so now the biggest age groups are 30 to 39 and 20 to 29. Like that is where the bulk of triathletes are.
Yeah.
And the problem for
This is for
like, largely
this
for,
is for the shorter, like this is for USAT.
This
numbers,
is for
which
all-
is like Olympic and under, or is
this
it
no
across
no
the
no
board?
USAT includes everything.
Okay.
USAT, this is why USAT's numbers are like consistently the most reliable, because any event that is sanctioned in the US is captured in their numbers. So this
Right.
is all races.
And
now the
Ironman
majority of
races.
the including Ironman
Okay.
races.
Okay.
Now the majority of it does not include unsanctioned races, which there, and like someone's going to point this out, does not include unsanctioned races, and there are some of those. They're not, unlike some of them are relatively big, particularly out in California, but still, it's like the majority of races. The majority of races are still Olympic and shorter, but it includes Ironman, it includes independent long course races, which are arguably who's being hit the hardest. But so this is all numbers, and their point is 20 to 29 skyrocketing. 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds are now our biggest demographic, but they are only doing 1 to 2 events. And then they're like moving on to marathons, or they're moving on to high rocks, or they're moving on to gravel race. Like that's it. The people who have built been the core of the sport forever, and that like Ironman is built on, are those 40 and 50-year-olds who do 3 or 4 or 5 events in a year. And they are not any, like they are just leaving triathlon. So the problem or like you could think of it as a opportunity or a problem for race directors, and particularly for Ironman, and like particularly for like independent long course, like is that you have a whole model built on kind of like those core, the people who are like posting on Slow Twitch. And they're dying. Like they are, like that graph is very distinctly going down, down, down. It's not just like because they're like they are leaving.
Yeah.
And so now you are going to have to change your product if you want to get, because the 20-somethings are finding you. They found you without you doing shit to attract them.
Yeah. I guess
So-
that's back to, you have to change like we talked about this a little already, but like you either have to change your product. And I think the second iteration of that in my thought process was like, oh, you have to make it more repeatable and definitive, and people know what they're getting and have ability to have the photos, can brag about it on Instagram, those things. And or you have to figure out your marketing, like that you have to actually be like reaching more. You have to be reaching more of those 20
Of those people.
like to 20 to 39-year-olds or whatever, and bringing more in to keep the numbers up if people are generally doing one and done.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of triathletes, period, are one and done. When you look at like USAT's historical data, it's something like 60% of everyone in their database has not returned to triathlon, right? Like it's like that is the reality. But when you look at like the last 2 years, that age group is very much and I will argue it's not just triathlon. Like when you look at running's boom right now,
I agree.
when we look at like the major marathons and they're selling out, there's very much, and this has been well documented, 20-somethings, they came of age in a pandemic. They came of age in an age of uncertainty. They are very invested in like wellness and health. That's been like well documented. And they're very invested in bucket list events. Like they want to do, because fuck it, Sarah, man, you don't know what's going to happen. You might as well do it now.
Well, yeah. Or I mean, I think it's also just part of the attitude. Like even if they're not like doomsdayers.
No, it's not. I'm just saying, but that is built into the core
Right.
of kids who were, I mean, they they like
Well,
graduated
you see,
college.
like
and
you
like
see
that
like
is
hybrid athletes, quote unquote, on Instagram,
Yeah.
things like that, where people are like, I'm going to do this high rocks event. I'm going to go do this trail run. I'm going to do this triathlon. Like they're like
Yes.
picking and choosing. They're just, and the goal is like kind of an overall fitness level that goes across their year, right? So I think too, like diversifying the product as well, like not just making it more a more dependable product, but also kind of, okay, where are they on the super short, like the super sprint product that you could do with your friends, like something you could jump into and every year, no matter where you are in your fitness, you know, or making one that's like less or more, if that makes sense, like something to grow into, right? And they have to be like attached or connected that way. Like people need to know that if they do the first sprint, the next thing is the Olympic.
Right.
The next thing,
And they could-
so that
right.
communication system has to be like there has to be cross promotion of those events.
So I don't know. I think it's actually an interesting challenge for
It is.
marketing.
Yeah.
Because at the same time that you need to present, like you need to offer these 20 somethings who are very, like, you can't just say like, oh, I know 20-year-olds. I was a 20-year-old once. This age group is definitely a different.
Yeah.
Like they respond differently to the world than you did when you were 20. They have different forces operating on them. At the same time, you have to provide something for them. You also do need to think about that core 48, 52-year-old who is not like who has moved on to gravel. So I don't know if you can solve both those problems at the same time. It's an interesting question.
challenge. And then who solves it? Right. Because like as a federation, you know, like you're very, even as a federation, like you're supporting the growth of the sport, right? But you're not, you know, like I'm just saying, oh, you need to get your marketing right, quote unquote. Well, like who's in charge of marketing triathlon?
Right.
You know,
Marketing
like
triathlon.
who's like what is that? You know, and then you know, and your focus as a federation is going to remain to some extent on the Olympics and that Olympic, you know, the Olympic funnel and all of that stuff too. So, yeah, it's a very complex problem and one that I'm glad is not mine.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people this weekend that I talked to, I mean, they're, especially race directors, like they're like, I just don't know. Like people are signing up later and later. Like costs are going up. Like I don't know if I'm going to get 1,000 people in my race or 2,000. Like I just, because people are signing up so much later, which fair. Like I don't sign up for things until the last minute anymore either, right? Like there are a lot of things built in. There's a lot of uncertainty kind of built into like the U.S. economy, but the global economy also right now. It's not like good uncertainty.
Yes, for sure. Okay, Kelly, before we go, because I know we have a bit of a hard stop coming up, I thought of my big takeaway from the weekend.
Oh, yeah?
Which I stumbled on earlier.
Okay.
And and it's going to be in the Women's Performance podcast on Monday, right? Is Erin's talk, right? From Erin's presentation about coaching, like or coaches, like how to have difficult conversations with your athletes, right? And as I was listening, because I was listening pretty intently because I was taking clips for social, and I realized kind of halfway through that like every piece of advice she had worked as advice for like how to talk to your partner or how to talk. Like I was taking notes about how to talk to my kid. You know, or how to talk to our team at Feisty, or how to, you know, like where the framework starts with like, it definitely starts with like a curiosity around like, I noticed that this thing is happening.
Right.
Like, is now a good time to talk about it? Was like a common thing that she said. And like, you could apply this to anything, right? Like, I noticed that you didn't unload the dishwasher. Were you feeling overwhelmed today, or is now a good time to talk about it? No,
Nice.
I'm just being funny with that example, but I do like I felt like I was thinking about like evolving my skills of my communication skills just broadly. So yeah, it's for everyone for sure.
That was your major takeaway.
That was my major takeaway. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mine was uncertainty. Mine was like, oof, everybody's like big question marks, and it's not just. I mean, it's everyone.
Yes.
It's major uncertainty. I talked to like a guy, hallway conversation, somebody who worked for LA28, and we were both like, whew, man. Like,
Right.
So yeah, that was my takeaway, was that everyone is sort of not sure what's going to happen. And if they tell you they're sure what's going to happen, they are lying.
Yeah.
So on that note, Erin will be joining us next week. Katie and Joanne will be back. I think Joanne might be in Lanzarote. Anyway, we will have the team back together, and Erin will be joining us to talk about the common mental health challenges that triathletes face and like some tips. So join us next week and go listen to the new Feisty Women's Performance podcast.
Cool. Thanks, Kelly.